I haven't seen you and Devin in years. How's school going?
Oh, hi, Miss Burk. My daughter Devin is doing well. She's actually on the honor roll.
That's wonderful. My daughter Anissa here is actually on the principal's list. Ever since we transferred to the new private school, her grades have improved so much.
Good for her. I've heard about this private school. Is it really that much better?
Well, the main difference is we actually wear clothing that's school appropriate.
You wouldn't know appropriate clothing with that dress.
See, my daughter would never act like this. School uniforms prevent these exact behavioral issues.
At least I'm not a robot and look like everyone else at the school. I get to express myself freely.
Actually, uniforms help the problem with students feel like they're lesser than other students due to clothing.
Don't act like you don't look like everyone else at that school with that ugly potato sack on.
I still have freedom.
Okay.
Well, under technicalities, uniforms limit your freedom of expression and put more surveillance on the said student. Administration is already wary of students. Once they put a uniform on the student, it reinforces the assumption that the administration does not trust students to follow the dress code policy. Even though there are 3 cases that limits their First Amendment freedom of expression, they still need to have a place where they don't feel controlled and can show who they are through clothing, hairstyles, and even accessories.
Well, wasn't it difficult for your daughter to make the shift from a public to a private school?
Now that my daughter goes to a prestigious private school, my daughter has been able to make a lot of new friends.
Yeah, me and my friends love our uniforms. Our skirts are so comfortable and so trendy.
While you may feel comfortable in your uniform, many students feel pressured by the required uniform choices. With it being 2019, lack of acknowledgement to gender identity is a big problem within schools. Implementing a school uniform policy holds those students back with feeling comfortable in their clothes and expressing their gender. It's not a problem just with gender identity. Students want to feel comfortable spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week at school. Uniforms often cater to only one body type, and if you don't fit that body type, students often feel uncomfortable in the clothing.
I had to transfer my daughter here to a private school because she's getting bullied so much. Now that she's at a private school, the bullying problem is non-existent.
Well, changing schools has a lot of factors, so your daughter's experience may not have improved because of school uniforms alone. Actually, a lot of girls have responded with negative school experience due to school uniform policies. A study on the effect of school uniforms found in Britain talks about girls as young as 15 getting harassed and fetishized by older men. And 35% of the 1,000 surveyed said that they had been touched, groped, or grabbed without their consent. And then only 8 of those percents came forward and said that they had been filmed or photographed by a stranger.
That's crazy to think about, especially with how common sexual harassment is nowadays.
I never thought the sexual harassment problem would get bigger with school uniforms.
But the problems don't just stop with sexual harassment. You also have to think about the budget.
T, I heard you talk about how expensive school uniforms are. With uniforms, as a parent of a student who's required to have a school uniform, you are paying more money for Anissa's wardrobe. While you are paying for her uniform that she wears at school and school only, you also have to pay for wardrobe that she wears outside of school. While T, on the other hand, is only paying for a wardrobe that can be used for both school and outside activities. The average cost for a uniform is $250 depending on the area, and some students need administrative support to offer free or reduced lunch. So if they can't even afford for their food, how are they supposed to afford required uniforms?
I do understand how that can be a financial burden for some people, but that's not a problem for us.
Well, this isn't a scene from Keeping Up with the Joneses, so continuing on. Behavioral issues were a point that was brought up. A common stigma assumes that kids with uniforms who attend more selective schools have less behavioral issues than students in schools who stick solely to dress code policies. However, people don't often consider that these suppressions on individuality and experience can lead students to behave more sheltered and be more ignorant in real life issues that they are present in other settings. For example, 61% of principals and assistant principals in North Carolina believe that there were a decrease in cases of misbehavior on campus. This was proven to be a fantasy because in reality, the data from the district showed on change in crime, violence, and suspension in schools. Once you really start to think about it, it doesn't make much sense to judge on individual students' ability to solely to judge any individual student's abilities solely based on a uniform.
Well, of course the uniform isn't going to change her behavior. My daughter here is an angel.
Changing a school environment can be beneficial for many students, but unlike popular assumption, the credit doesn't belong to school uniforms. More than 90% of all secondary schools in England are now requiring uniforms, but despite dressing their students in blazers and ties, more than 40 students last year failed to reach for their government's goal of 30%, with 5 tests including math and English. When considering results like that, referring to a country that primarily follows a uniform policy, it says a lot.
You know, Adam, I'm starting to see the other side of the argument. I'm starting to see how I'm wrong. And I never admit I'm wrong. I'm sorry for attacking you and your child in the dress code policy.
It's okay. I know we all got heated in the moment, but I'm glad that we've all come to a consensus. We can see where everybody's coming from.
I guess we aren't that different after all. I think we should hang out sometime, Anissa.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Group hug!
Why are you still here and who are you?
Well, that's it for today's episode of Audrey Ruins Everything on School Uniforms. Just remember, our uniforms are really a solution for all student and school issues. See you next time!
Woo! You should go like this.